Trust is supposed to be the cornerstone of every marriage. For 8 years, I held on to that belief like a sacred truth. I trusted Emily with my life, my children, and every piece of my heart. Yet, here I was standing in the dim light of our bedroom, realizing that trust can crumble in an instant. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table, its faint glow casting shadows across the room. I wouldn't have noticed it if the name on the screen hadn't caught my attention, Chris. A message preview flashed below the name. Innocuous, or so it seemed. But my gut told me otherwise. Ryan? Emily's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She stood in the doorway, her damp hair wrapped in a towel, watching me with a curious expression. I forced a smile, my hand hovering over her phone. Just checking the time? Her gaze lingered on me for a moment longer than necessary before she stepped into the room, her bare feet padding softly against the carpet. Placing a basket of laundry on the bed, she began sorting clothes, humming a tune under her breath. But there was something off, something distant in her tone, in her movements. Anything exciting happening tomorrow? I asked casually, trying to ease my growing suspicion. She didn't look up. Just the usual. Work. The neighbors invited us over this weekend, though. I froze for a moment. Which neighbors? Chris and Jenna, she said, her voice light, as if this were an everyday conversation. They're hosting a party? Something in her tone made me uneasy. What kind of party? Her hesitation was so brief, I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching her so closely. Not your typical one, she said, folding a shirt. I waited, my patience thinning. What does that mean? She sighed, finally meeting my eyes. It's a swingers party. At first, I thought she was joking. When she didn't laugh, my disbelief turned into something darker. You're serious? Emily shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant, but I could see the tension in her jaw. Ryan, we've been in a rut for years. Don't you think this could help? It's not like it means anything. My mind reeled. You want us to sleep with other people? That's your solution? It's just one night, she said, her tone defensive. Chris and Jenna swear it's brought them closer. Why can't we try? I laughed, a harsh sound that filled the room. Because it's insane. We're not them, Emily. This isn't fixing anything, it's breaking what's left. For the next few days, the conversation haunted me. Emily didn't drop the subject. She brought it up at breakfast, while I was paying bills, even as I tucked our kids, Mia and Ethan, into bed. She pleaded, cajoled, and even tried to guilt me into agreeing. By Thursday night, her persistence turned to defiance. As I stood in the kitchen unloading the dishwasher, she walked in and dropped a bombshell. I'm going, she said flatly, her arms crossed over her chest. With or without you? I turned to her, stunned. What about Mia and Ethan? Who's going to watch them while you're off, doing whatever it is you're planning to do? I'll hire a babysitter, she replied coolly. It's not a big deal. It's a big deal to me, I shot back, my voice rising. If you go, we're done. You hear me? I'll file for divorce. Her lips parted in shock, but instead of backing down, she doubled down. You'd throw away our marriage over one night? That's pathetic. No, I said firmly. You're throwing it away. The night of the party arrived far too quickly. Emily was practically glowing as she got ready, wearing a black dress that hugged her figure in a way she hadn't done for years. She barely looked at me as she grabbed her purse, a smug smile playing on her lips. I'll be back late, she said, heading for the door. Don't forget your phone, I muttered, unable to resist the jab. She paused, glaring at me. Don't wait up, Ryan. I'll have fun, with or without you. The moment the door closed behind her, I sprang into action. My heart pounded as I called my mother, arranging for her to take the kids for the weekend. I didn't give her details, just enough to reassure her that it was important. Within the hour, Mia and Ethan were at her house, safe and oblivious to the chaos brewing at home. Back in the empty house, I sat at the kitchen table, a drink in my hand, staring at Emily's absence like it was a physical entity. Rage and heartbreak churned in my gut, but beneath it all was a cold, calculated resolve. She thought this was just a harmless game, a way to fix us. She had no idea the consequences she'd unleashed. By the next morning, Emily waltzed into the house, disheveled but radiating a smug satisfaction that made my blood boil. Her hair was messy, her makeup smudged, and her dress wrinkled. She dropped her purse on the counter, pulling out her phone. "Well," she said, smirking. "I recorded it just like I said I would. Proof that it's not a big deal." I stared at her, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. Without a word, I took the phone from her hand and walked upstairs. As I plugged it into my laptop, her words echoed in my mind. Proof it's not a big deal. But the videos told a different story. One of betrayal, laughter, and intimate moments that shattered every piece of trust we had built. And as I watched, one thought consumed me. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. As the sun filtered through the curtains, marking a new day, Emily sauntered into the kitchen with her signature smirk, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. She poured herself a cup of coffee, her nonchalance adding fuel to the fire of my rage. "So, Ryan," she began casually, leaning against the counter, "did you watch it?" "Every second," I replied coldly, meeting her gaze. My tone was neutral, but my fists clenched under the table betrayed the volcanic eruption threatening to escape. "And?" She raised an eyebrow, as if daring me to react. "See? It wasn't such a big deal. Just adults having fun." I stared at her, letting the silence stretch. "You really don't see what you've done, do you?" "What I've done," she scoffed, setting her mug down. "Ryan, you're being dramatic. I had a good time. That's all." "You had a good time destroying our families?" My voice rose despite my effort to remain calm. "You think our kids deserve this?" Her confidence faltered for the briefest moment, but she quickly masked it with defiance. "They'll never know. It's not like it's affecting them." I didn't respond. Instead, I stood up and walked to the living room, my back to her. The pieces of my plan were falling into place, and she was too blinded by her own hubris to notice. Let her bask in her arrogance, I thought. She won't see what's coming. The days that followed were a blur of calculated moves. Every detail mattered. I filed the divorce papers quietly, ensuring that my lawyer had all the evidence needed to secure custody of Mia and Ethan. The videos Emily so gleefully provided became my strongest weapon. Meanwhile, Emily carried on as if nothing had changed. She was too caught up in her own self-indulgence to notice the shifts in our routine. The growing distance between us, the calls I made in private, the meticulous way I documented every interaction. I was playing the long game, and she had no idea. One evening, she approached me, her tone unusually sweet. "Ryan, I've been thinking maybe we could go to the next party together. You might actually enjoy it." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "You really don't get it, do you?" "What's there to get?" she snapped, her tone turning defensive. "I was trying to fix us, to make things exciting again." "You weren't fixing anything, Emily. You were breaking everything," I said, my voice sharp. "But don't worry. You'll understand soon enough." Her confusion was evident, but I didn't elaborate. Let her wonder. Let her stew. The moment of reckoning was approaching, and I wanted her to feel every ounce of the betrayal she had so carelessly dealt. The day I served her the divorce papers was a turning point. She was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, when I placed the envelope on the counter. "What's this?" she asked, picking it up. Her expression darkened as she read the contents. "You're divorcing me?" "Yes," I said simply, watching her reaction carefully. "And I'm fighting for full custody of the kids." Her face flushed with anger. "Full custody? Are you insane? You can't do that." "I can, and I will," I said, my tone unwavering. "The court will have everything it needs to see why you're unfit." "Unfit," she repeated, her voice rising. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Ryan. It was one night. One night, that doesn't mean anything." I stepped closer, my voice low and cold. "It meant enough for you to betray me, to betray your children. You made your choices, Emily. Now you'll live with the consequences." The courtroom was tense, the air thick with unspoken judgments as the evidence was presented. Emily's lawyer argued that the event had been consensual, but the videos spoke louder than any defense. Clip after clip played on the screen, each one stripping away the facade she had so desperately tried to maintain. By the end of the proceedings, the judge ruled in my favor. I was granted full custody of Mia and Ethan, while Emily was left with a fraction of what she had hoped for. Her confident smirk was gone, replaced by a hollow emptiness that mirrored the destruction she had brought upon herself. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Months later, I crossed paths with Chris, one of the neighbors who had hosted the infamous party. His discomfort was palpable as he tried to make small talk, avoiding my gaze. "Listen," he finally said, shifting awkwardly. "I didn't know it would go that far." "What are you talking about?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. He hesitated before sighing heavily. "Emily didn't just, sleep with one guy. It was 3. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. 3. Not 1. Not even 2. The depth of her betrayal sank in, the weight of it threatening to crush me. But instead of breaking, I felt a strange calm settle over me. "Thanks for letting me know," I said, my voice steady. Walking away, I realized I no longer cared about her actions. They were a reflection of who she was, not who I had been. My focus was on my children, on the life we were rebuilding together. And as for Emily, she would live with the consequences of her choices, long after I had moved on. Looking back, I'm grateful I learned the truth about Emily before wasting more years on a lie. It wasn't easy to rebuild, but every step forward was a step away from the chaos she had created. Now, my life is about Mia, Ethan, and the peace we've found together. And Emily? The last I heard, she was still in the same neighborhood, her reputation in tatters. Actions have consequences, and hers caught up to her in the end. The days following the courtroom victory felt surreal. The house I once called home was now a hollow shell, a place tainted by memories of Emily's betrayal. I moved into a modest apartment with Mia and Ethan, determined to build a life free from the wreckage she had left behind. It wasn't easy. Explaining to the kids why their mother wasn't around as much required more strength than I thought I had. "Why can't Mom stay with us?" Mia asked one evening, her wide, innocent eyes piercing through my defenses. I knelt to her level, choosing my words carefully. "Mom and I are working on living in different places right now, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean we love you any less." She seemed to accept that answer, but I knew questions like these would only grow harder with time. Despite the challenges, I threw myself into creating a sense of normalcy. I signed Mia up for dance lessons, joined a local parenting group to meet other single dads, and took Ethan to the park every Saturday morning. Each small victory felt like reclaiming a piece of my life. But no matter how far I tried to move forward, Emily's shadow lingered. It started with late-night texts. "Ryan, we need to talk. I know I messed up. Please let me explain. Can we meet? Just us?" At first, I ignored her. There was nothing left to say. But her persistence grew. One evening, she showed up unannounced at my apartment, her eyes red and swollen, her confidence replaced by desperation. "Ryan, please," she pleaded, standing in the doorway. "Let me in. I need to see the kids." "They're asleep," I said flatly, blocking her view of the living room. Her voice cracked. "I made a mistake, okay? I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I thought it would help us." "Help us?" I scoffed, my anger bubbling to the surface. "You call sleeping with 3 men helping us? You destroyed everything, Emily. Don't stand there and act like it was an accident." Her face crumpled, but I couldn't bring myself to care. She had been so bold, so unapologetic before. Now, she was grasping at straws. "You need to leave," I said firmly. She tried to argue, but I closed the door in her face. For the first time, I felt a sense of finality. She had chosen her path, and I had no intention of letting her derail mine again. Emily's reputation didn't just falter, it imploded. The videos leaked, not by me, though I wouldn't have shed any tears if they had. Chris, in his attempt to clear his own name, ended up spilling the truth about the party to mutual friends, and the story spread like wildfire. I heard snippets at the grocery store, in whispered conversations at the park. "Did you hear about Emily? She slept with 3 guys at that party. Poor Ryan and those kids." Emily, once the picture-perfect suburban mom, became the subject of ridicule. She withdrew from public life, retreating into the very house she had fought so hard to keep. From what I heard, even Jenna, her so-called friend, had cut ties with her. Months passed, and I began to feel like I could finally breathe again. Life with Mia and Ethan settled into a comfortable rhythm. I started therapy, which helped me unpack the pain and anger that had been simmering beneath the surface. Then, one afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. "Ryan, it's Chris." My stomach tightened. "What do you want?" "There's something you need to know," he said, his tone uncharacteristically serious. He hesitated, then delivered the final blow. Emily wasn't just experimenting. She's been seeing someone, one of the guys from the party. They've been meeting up since the divorce. I let the words sink in, my initial anger quickly replaced by a strange sense of relief. It all made sense now. Her desperation, her attempts to reconcile. She hadn't been fighting for us or the kids. She'd been trying to protect her own interests. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I feel responsible," Chris admitted. "That party was my idea, and I never thought it would end like this." "I'm sorry." I hung up without another word. With this new information, I decided to make one last move. I filed for an adjustment to the custody agreement, citing Emily's ongoing reckless behavior as evidence. The court granted me sole decision-making authority over the kids' upbringing, leaving Emily with limited visitation rights. When the ruling came down, Emily showed up at my apartment one last time, her eyes filled with fury. "You're taking everything from me," she screamed, her voice echoing in the hallway. "No, Emily," I said, my tone calm and resolute. "You did that to yourself." As time passed, the wounds began to heal. I focused on my children, on building a life where they felt loved and secure. I met someone new, someone who understood the value of trust and shared my vision for the future. Emily faded into the background, a ghost of the person she once was. She remained in the neighborhood, isolated and ostracized, a cautionary tale of what happens when selfishness blinds you to the people you're supposed to care about most. One day, as I watched Mia and Ethan play in the yard, I realized something profound. I was free. Free from the lies, the betrayal, and the pain. And in that moment, I knew I had won. Not through revenge, but through rebuilding the life Emily tried to destroy.